this hearing to order. We are recording this, so that's why we want you to come up here so you can not only speak to the audience but also to our digital equipment. And we will send the CD of it to the Wayne after we're done, along with any written testimony or email testimony we've gotten. I'm Lenny Elias, I'm President of Commissioners this year. Chris Schneal, Charlie Adkins, Julie Brooks, and Joe Sikorsky, our Assistant Clerk and Clerk, respectively.
To say that this is, what I've written is adapted from an online description from the Ken Burns special and directly from the Wayne Forestry website. I recently watched Ken Burns' special called National Parks, America's Best Idea. It's a story of people who were willing to devote themselves to saving some precious portion of the land they loved, and in doing so to remind their fellow citizens of the full meaning of democracy. It's a story of people rich and poor, famous and unknown, soldiers and scientists, natives and newcomers, idealists, artists, and entrepreneurs. The Wayne is a small national forest, our only one in Ohio, in the heart of a heavily populated Midwest, where visitors are welcome to camp, hike, hunt, and fish. The Wayne National Forest manages many resources with the objective of caring for the land and serving the people. Management protects natural resources, public health and safety, and is consistent with the forest, land, and resource management goals, whatever those may be. Of 833,990 acres, many of the mineral rights to this national forest are privately owned. But owning the mineral rights of land that is a national forest is akin to owning the milk and not the cow. Once the milk is gone, once the oil and gas is depleted or becomes worthless, the public will be left with a denuded forest, contaminated aquifers, streams, and air that affect the health and safety of the very public the National Forest Management is meant to protect. This in no way reminds me and my fellow citizens of the full meaning of democracy. It reeks of greed for a few and the rest be damned. Remember, you may drill and you may make some measure of money, but you can't take it with you. Meanwhile, someone has to take care of the cow after the milk has dried up.
Hello, my name is Michael Rinaldi-Eichenberg, and I'm here to give comments in opposition to fracking the Wayne. I think by this point, the anti-fracking movement has pretty clearly and repeatedly stated its case, and the evidence clearly backs this stance. Allowing fracking is like mortgaging our future to make a cheap dollar, and it's not a mortgage worth taking out. The wealth of fracking is not spread among everyone. Meanwhile, the risk of fracking is shouldered by everyone. Government entities are meant to protect public interest, and yet this is a case of government entities doing the exact opposite, sacrificing public land, public health, in favor of corporate interest. The process of allowing fracking in the Wayne has been rushed and lacking transparency. It's clear the public's input is neither wanted nor valued, with the exception of this hearing. Unfortunately, it's not being put on by the Wayne itself. Furthermore, the environmental assessment performed by the BLM, Bureau of Land Management, is lacking, and that's me being polite. I'd like to point out a couple examples. According to the environmental assessment, and I quote, "An assessment of impacts on climate change from the release of greenhouse gases is outside the scope of this document because it is a global phenomenon." End quote. First of all, let's acknowledge that fracking will and does contribute to global climate change as a result of greenhouse gases that are vented during production. That will happen. It does happen. Secondly, it strikes me as a little lazy to gloss over the environmental challenge of our time. This is akin to a local law enforcement agency saying, terrorism, that's a global issue. Random gun violence, that's bigger than we are. We can't plan for these. We don't know when or how they're going to happen or what they're going to look like. Therefore, we don't need to talk about them. It's dangerously idiotic, right? Yeah. Furthermore, this is an environmental assessment, the point of which is to assess environmental impacts of fracking. That's the point of the document. If you're not going to do that in the environmental assessment, if you're not going to discuss the environmental challenge of our time, then what the hell is the point of an environmental assessment? Later, the EA states, the BLM encourages industry to incorporate and implement best management practices designed to reduce impacts to air quality. The BLM encourages oil and natural gas companies to adopt proven, cost-effective technologies and practices that improve operational efficiency and reduce natural gas emissions. Encouragement is great when you're trying to potty train your kids. It doesn't work so well in the adult level, right? And as proof, I'm here to encourage Tony Scardina to not give consent, and we'll see what my encouragement gets me. It's abundantly clear that fracking is dangerous. The more we do it, the more we place our future at risk, our air, our water, the very land we live on, our health. Fracking is a threat to the very thread of life. I don't want fracking to happen anywhere, but I'm choosing to focus my energy on fighting this battle close to home, and Marietta is close to home. Ultimately, I know the resistance to this dirty, socially unjust process will prevail. We aren't going anywhere. We live here. The only question is how much damage will be done.
First of all, I'd like to thank the county commissioners, Atkins, Schmiel, and Eliason for being the only apparently aware elected officials in the state of Ohio who feel it's important for democracy and due process for the public to let our voices be heard. So thank you very much.
While you're praising this, I'm not going to take it away from you.
It wouldn't matter, I'm talking.
Yeah.
I wrote a letter to Supervisor Tony Scardina, having a wonderful time, wish you were here. No, that's not what it says. I'm sorry that Supervisor Scardina chose to not come to this meeting to hear the public's concerns. This is a very complicated and emotional issue. And it's not just about whether to frack or not frack on our public lands. It's about process, it's about laws, and laws that are not being followed. I get the feeling that Supervisor Scardina is using his political relations in his decision-making to consent to leasing, thinking that sacrificing the Marietta unit will satisfy the pressure he's getting from the Washington, Monroe, and Noble County influence. But there's nothing in the law that says you have to satisfy or even consider the desire of a landowner's private wealth as a reason to consent to leasing. As a matter of fact, the law mandates that you have researched thoroughly and make absolutely sure the correct research has been performed before leasing to assure that all aspects of this highly industrialized, high-risk, dangerous invasion with life-threatening health impacts by contaminating our water and air and no sustainable yield of economic growth to the region have been studied. As a matter of fact, about the only truth that I found in the environmental assessment was a comment by one of the studies quoted in it that says that there'll only be 320 jobs created in our region, and most of them could be transient workers. The only piece of truth I found in the entire 113-page document. So here's the truth. Tony Scardina has the authority and the power to make the right decision, which is to complete an environmental impact study or start a new forest plan, both of which recognize fracking is a major federal action mandating further study with up-to-date scientific research. The Wayne got it wrong in 2012 with the Supplemental Information Report. And the Bureau of Land Management took that and cut and pasted that ridiculous document and created a 113-page document called an environmental assessment. Well, in 2016, anybody in this world that thinks that fracking doesn't have an impact on our climate, on our world, and climate change, well, quite frankly, is just a fool. Tony Scardina told me in a meeting that when the environmental assessment signed off by the Bureau of Land Management lands on his desk, that he has the power and the authority to tell the Bureau of Land Management, you got it wrong, we need to do a supplemental environmental impact study which recognizes significant federal action by this program of fracking that is not supposed to be happening in the Wayne National Forest. I asked Tony that told him that the blind eyes of the BLM and the Forest Service need to be open to the effects of fracking on public lands and its contribution to climate change. Tony Scardina, you need to be part of building the political power to change the course of history. Because whether you like it or not, our survival depends on it.
John Kasich, and I'm a Ohio fracker. Hi friends, I'm here from Columbus. I work with a nonprofit called, no, it's not even a nonprofit, it's grassroots, called Radioactive Waste Alert. And we all know here that frack waste is radioactive, carcinogenic, endocrine disruptive, and also neurotoxic. We all know that Athens is taking the most waste of Ohio. And you have incredible fighters, incredible activists here. We're here to stand in solidarity with you. And we're here to spread the word because this Tony man, he is someone that has something to say. So I ask every single one of you to go knock on his door and go tell him that you expect him to raise this issue, that you must have this test. I don't know all the issues about what you're fighting, but you have the power to knock on his door. Make him uncomfortable, hold him accountable. We're doing our best to hold Mr. Kasich accountable, and we're going to get more and more in his face because he also can ban fracking. We're doing a lot, but let's make the people that can make those choices very uncomfortable. Just by knocking on their door, calling them, emailing them. Every single one of you can do that.
Hello, my name is Heidi Desi, and I am one of Bernie Sanders' delegates from the 15th Congressional District. So I'm here, first of all, to say Bernie would not be happy with fracking. He knows it's not a good thing to do, that we've got to move on to sustainable energy. We're poisoning our water, it's a rare commodity anymore, and this is a dangerous practice. It makes no sense. I'm sure many of you wonder, what are we doing? And we're going to look back on this and think, what the heck were we thinking when we did this? It's absolutely crazy. But unfortunately, we don't have that foresight, so we have to struggle through this, but hopefully we open people's eyes. As an herbalist, it really concerns me because this area is very rich in native plants, and it really concerns me. I've seen some of the destruction. I'm very concerned about that. And just as a person, I'm sure for many of you, this is just really crazy that we're fighting this battle, that people are not listening to us. We can't get a redo on this. Once this is done, it's done. We can't do it over. So we've got to be careful in the decisions we make. It's just so important. It's not us. I wish we could see into the future. This is our children, our grandchildren. What are we doing? What are we thinking? We're supposed to be looking several generations ahead, not just for today and what we need today. It's not about us, it's about the future. And we really need to fight for the future and for our children and our grandchildren, and I really hope we'll do that.
I work with ACFAN, acfan.org, acfan.org for a lot of documents, including some of your comments, and if you want them posted, send them to me. Wayne has a legal responsibility to base all of its actions on up-to-date science. The Wayne has never done any meaningful evaluation of fracking. Tony Scardina can and must say no to the BLM and their EA, which is totally absurd. Federal law also requires that when forests consider multiple uses, a particular use can be authorized only if it doesn't degrade other uses. Clearly, fracking degrades the much more valuable uses of a forest for purification and protection of air and water quality, forest ecosystem conservation, and low-impact tourism. A few of many absurdities in the recently released BLM EA. It cites an unpublished master's thesis funded by BP that says small spills are more common than big spills. And then misuses this meaningless, absurd statement to dismiss the catastrophic risk of spills and blowouts. And when Tony Scardina tells us to use peer-reviewed science, look in this document because there's none. There is no analysis of air emissions, even though Washington County air quality already often fails federal standards. Thanks to fracking, ozone levels in Utah's rural Uinta Basin are higher in the winter than Los Angeles in the summer. The EA provides no numbers on volatile organics per well, per truck trip, per barrel of waste venting from waste storage tanks, per anything. There is no analysis of climate impacts, as Michael discussed. Since Ohio does not regulate emissions from drilling or fracturing, claiming that Ohio law can protect air quality as the EA does is dangerous and wrong. The EA claims that aquifers will be identified, which is impossible since Southeast Ohio aquifers are unmapped. The EA says drinking water sources encountered during drilling will be protected, but in Ohio, as Teresa Mills has told us and studied from the ODNR website, toxic chemicals are used in the drilling muds, which can contaminate drinking water before any sort of protective measures could be applied if there were such. Well failure, not discussed. Waste injection, not considered. Truck accidents, water withdrawal impacts, not evaluated, even though water withdrawal and consumption are unlimited by Ohio law. We all know what Ohio regulation of frack waste is like, nil. Given this ridiculous pretense of an evaluation, Tony Scardina legally can and ethically must refuse consent. Do the right thing, Tony. No consent.
My point tonight is to share with you City Council's perspective on what kind of risk this poses to the Athens community. I hadn't originally intended to speak, but what I did is pull out a statement made some years ago at the Wayne National Forest about our position. In December 2011, Council sponsored a resolution in which we pledged our resolve to execute and enforce ordinances within our jurisdiction to protect our water supply and air quality, and to protect the city from pollution in the process of deep shale drilling and horizontal hydraulic fracturing. Then in May 2012, Council sponsored a resolution that requests the Wayne National Forest to do three things. We were asked for a national environmental impact process prior to the release of any surface or subsurface rights, and consider the regional impact and keep the city informed of the process. And so here we are 3 years later, but I'm glad to see so many people standing strong about this. From our perspective as legislators for the city of Athens, you might ask why we enacted these resolutions. And one of the critical issues in the horizontal fracturing process is that it consumes many times more water and generates many times more waste than conventional vertical drilling. And as members of City Council, when we take office, we swear, we take an oath that says that we'll protect the health, safety, and welfare of our citizens. To allow this leasing of the forest land in the present manner, and I think this is still an accurate statement from what I made years ago, could threaten our public drinking water supplies. And it's for that reason that City Council has taken a stand. The very safety of our citizens is inextricably linked with the Wayne National Forest. And so as a fellow public servant, I would request a more thorough analysis before proceeding.
Andrea Reich. I'm a 40-year resident of Athens County, retired public servant, and a member of ACFAN. Raised my children in this community and have used and loved the Wayne National Forest for hiking, trail riding, you name it, we've done it. I don't know how in 2 minutes to condense what I really feel here. I want to say thanks to the commissioners. We've asked them and they were willing to step forward. I met with Tony Scardina along with Debbie Phillips, our Ohio House Rep, and Ann Rubin. I invited him to attend several times. I encouraged him. He said, would you sit with me and protect me? And I said, the commissioners will protect you. I think it's really important for you to come and hear the concerns of this community. So I am really, really disappointed and sorry he is not here, because there's a lot of passion and a lot of emotion. And when you read the letters, you don't get the meat of it, you don't get the heart of it, and that's why we're all here. People have addressed the environmental assessment. I tried to read it, 113 pages. But I wanted to say, one of the things he said to me is, when you make comment, make sure it's peer review research. He said that multiple times. If you read that EA, there is not peer review research documentation there. So he speaks out of one side of his mouth, but what actually was in the EA was not present there. The other thing he said, and I think Heather mentioned that there were a lot of questions, and we asked him that last week. Where does the water come from? Where does it get deposited? How many acres are disrupted? He had no answers for that, because he said, well, this is a preliminary EA. Once the leases are assigned, then I'll have oversight. Well, I think that's bull. Now is the time to ask the questions. We don't know where the aquifers are. We don't know where the water's coming from. We need to have these questions answered. And he, as the National Forest Manager, has an ethical responsibility to know the answers of these questions before he consents. That is unethical and not what we want to see in someone that leads our national forest. So I say you have a right and responsibility to say no to this fracking and any of the leases on the Wayne National Forest. Write Tony tomorrow and say, where were you? Because he was invited. I know other people were there today and invited him. He needed to be here and hear from our community. He does not live in this community. He is a passer through. This is where we live. He needs to hear what we're passionate about. So call him, write him, tell him, say no.
Good evening, good to see everyone. I'm Lorraine McCosker. I'm a 13-year resident of Athens County, and I'm a visitor and user of the Marietta and all the units of the Wayne National Forest. This is really critical that people get to speak, that we can get to come together and show our concerns and feel like we have a voice. I'd also like to thank really important organizations, the Athens County Fracking Action Network that's been on top of this for years, Buckeye Forest Council, Heartwood, who these three organizations submitted comments. Also, there were comments submitted by the Center for Biological Diversity, the National Sierra Club, the Ohio Environmental Council, and Friends of the Earth. So this is a really important case, and I don't think it's going to be passed by lightly. I'd like to just say that I don't believe that the EA and the FONSI are comprehensive and complete. They lack the science that's part of the NEPA process, and they're not addressing the complexities and therefore violating the National Environmental Policy Act. There are two important things to consider. Supervisor Scardina can deny the consent to allow leasing of the parcels in the Wayne, and that the forest plan of 2006 does not include deep hydraulic fracturing as a component of that document. It didn't include climate change. This document was dated before it was printed. It did not include the Nelsonville bypass, but it was in the appendix. That was something I worked on back then. So this is sort of a history that the Forest Service has had of not really following through and really applying good science. And I'm very concerned with that. As we know, climate change is documented globally by scientists. The Paris Accords were signed in 2015, and the U.S. is supposed to comply with those accords and come up with a plan. One of the plans should be that they keep their fossil fuels in the ground on public lands. That's a simple thing that we can do. We do not need to be pushing out and using our public lands for this. In October of last year, the Office of Budget Management, the OMB, and the Council on Environmental Quality, which was established by the National Environmental Policy Act, issued a memorandum titled Incorporating Ecosystem Services into Federal Decision-Making. So this was October 15th of 2015. This was before the BLM created the environmental assessment. This was a mandatory directive requiring that federal agencies develop and institute policies to promote consideration of ecosystem services in planning, investments, regulatory activities, and permitting. What are ecosystem services? This is simple things that we all expect to be there. And we're seeing ever more greatly and with rapidity that they aren't, such as clean air, clean water, pollination, climate regulation, erosion control, and carbon sequestration. So that's something that has not been addressed that we can ask Supervisor Scardina about. The enormous amount of waste that we have in the state of Ohio that's been documented by Teresa Mills, who's in the room, and we're very thankful for her. She works for Buckeye Forest Council and the Center for Health and Environmental Justice. In 2015, the state received 28 million barrels of waste. If you convert those to gallons, it's 1.2 billion gallons of waste into our state. Athens received 4 million barrels, or 168 million gallons. Washington County, where the Marietta unit is located, received 2 million barrels, or 93 million gallons. So one can only assume that if indeed they're fracking in the Marietta unit, that waste is going to be plugged right here in southeast Ohio. We really don't want to be exporting our waste like other states are doing, but we should not be creating any waste. We just really need to continue to demand that our public officials and the Forest Service and the BLM follow the law with the National Environmental Policy Act, and we continue to show our concern, our outrage. Quote, this is by Teddy Roosevelt, a Republican in 1912, and he helped establish the United States Forest Service, working with Gifford Pinchot and John Muir, who was the founder of the Sierra Club. And he has a plethora of quotes if you ever just want to go online and read some great books about him. There's a book called The Big Burn, and it's about the establishment of the Forest Service. Tony has that book on his bookshelf, because we've talked about it. I've been to his office about 3 times. We both have different perspectives of what that book was saying, so it's interesting to me, because he got a totally different idea from it than I did. But the quote is, the nation behaves well if it treats its natural resources as assets, which it must turn over to the next generation increased and not impaired in value.
My name is Lisa Agley and I reside in Jackson County, Ohio. However, I visit Athens County probably 2 to 3 times a week. I patronize your local restaurants, your businesses, Stroud's Run, and Wayne National Forest. And for me, this began when I started attending Ohio University as a junior in high school. So, from an early age, I realized what a gem Athens County is, and this gem should be shared by all, not just a few that want to cash it in, ruin it, and then leave. And this has been the plight of far too many towns across our country, since no one can drink water laced with biocidal agents. And many towns experience earthquakes all day long, day after day. Who wants to live there? Growing up among coal mines of Appalachia, I know what irresponsible, unregulated industry did to the poor. The vestiges are still prominent today, as we know, living here. It costs a large sum of money to run a TV ad telling everyone how safe fracking is and how it's been done for many years safely. And I wonder if those that were preyed upon by the natural gas industry that can afford to run these ads could run their own after the fracking industry has left their town in ruin. Or maybe then we could make an informed decision about this subject. As a teacher and an aunt to many children that I love, I cannot imagine that anyone would want to take on such a risk as fracking. All kids deserve their basic rights to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. And so I beg you, please, do the right thing, Mr. Scardina. Don't give consent and don't gamble these rights and such a gem that this county offers its residents and people in the surrounding areas of Appalachia that visit it. All the money in the world can't buy us clean drinking water. Rich or poor, we all live downstream, and I hope that all these facts, incidents, the reasons we give, and examples will be taken to heart.
I'm Zella Isley, a resident of Athens County and an ACFAN steering committee member. I'd like to share with you a quote from the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Division of Forestry website. Healthy forest ecosystems are ecologically life support systems. Forests provide a full suite of goods and services that are vital to human health and livelihood. Natural assets we call ecosystem services. Many of these goods and services are traditionally viewed as free benefits to society. or public goods, wildlife habitat and diversity, watershed services, carbon storage, and scenic landscapes, for example. Lacking a formal market, these natural assets are traditionally absent from society's balance sheet. The critical contributions are often overlooked in public, corporate, and individual decision-making. Additionally, the present Council of Advisors for Science and Technology, PCAST, finds degradation of ecosystems is rooted in the widespread underappreciation of the importance of the environmental capital for human well-being and the value of these services. I encourage you, Tony Scardina, to do the right thing, as it is your job to respond to the volumes of research regarding the value of ecosystem services, the very services found within our ecological life-supporting system known as Wayne National Forest, and giving no consent to auctioning off these critical services for oil and gas leasing. I will not take the time to quote from the growing quantity of recent research now. This research clearly indicates that the value of healthy forests and other natural resources are worth far more to us than any amount of fossil fuel reaped or raped from our public lands. I will add that I know in my heart, because of what I have experienced in our Wayne National Forest, there is an abundant offering of life-giving and enriching elements. I do not even know how anyone can truly assess monetary value of these precious elements. They must, in no uncertain terms, be permitted to be chiseled or eroded away by the oil and gas company's destruction. Tony Scardina, do the right thing. No consent.
Bureau of Land Management displays astounding chutzpah in this draft environmental assessment, in which they find no aspect of fracking will have a significant harmful effect. No aspect. They don't take into account the hugely accumulating body of peer-reviewed and investigative reporting that is taking place all of the time. They ignore hundreds, literally hundreds if not thousands of scientific studies and investigative reports documenting the myriad harms related to fracking in all of its aspects. There may be economic benefits from fracking for some, but the overwhelming evidence is that it's unsafe and not beneficial for most of us. Until there is a genuine and substantial assessment that reflects the best research on the impacts of fracking, neither the BLM nor the Wayne National Forest Supervisor can honestly and objectively determine whether or not the proposed extraction proposals will have unacceptably harmful and sometimes irreparable impacts on the forest, resident species, on surrounding land, road, and bridges, on the health and security of people living in the area, on water quality and supply, on the air, the climate, and much more. If they proceed to grant permission for fracking under present circumstances, there will be at least three unwelcome outcomes. One, they would be doing a great disservice to the public. Two, their decision would threaten the environmental integrity of the Wayne National Forest. And three, the decision would reinforce the widely held view that government regulatory agencies are captured by special interest.
My name is Matt Roberts. I'm not really sure exactly what I want to say, but I know I want to say something different than what's already been said. We all know that fracking is not good. It uses chemicals that we have no idea what they are. It causes land degradation. It's obviously some sort of ploy to dig at the bottom of the barrel for energy. This is a response by the current establishment that we live in, our current political structure. I want to speak about the solutions that we can go after in combating this. So I did get a chance to meet with Tony Scardina, and he told me two things, two important insights that should be heard tonight. he said he's getting direction from the White House and Congress to explore domestic energy production. Understandable. We live in a chaotic world that involves a lot of geopolitics, and I'm sure America wants to be at the top of the game as far as controlling oil prices. So that's a real thing. I understand that he's probably feeling pressures that we have no idea what that looks like or feels like. The other thing he said was that people in Monroe, Washington, Lawrence County, for example, want fracking to happen. They see this as an economic opportunity for them. And why shouldn't they? They live in poverty. They are looking for any way out of the situation that they're in. But as I was sitting with my good friend Caitlin, we encouraged them multiple times, 5 or 6, to, as all of you are saying, to not give consent to this because this is a real threat to the climate. And it's ridiculous to say that this little piece of oil and gas development doesn't matter to the global climate. Any energy development does. I didn't want to leave empty-handed from the conversation with him pushing people off as he does. What we ended up coming with is, let's think about this as solution-oriented, community-focused development. If fracking is really the best, then let's challenge them and really see if there's other solutions that can bring real economic development to this region. Because profits does not necessarily mean economic health. What I want to explore with Tony and with the Wayne National Forest is, what about domestic energy production that just isn't oil and gas? What about solar? What about geothermal? What about biogas? What about these other ways where we can develop sustained economic, real jobs for people that last, not boom and bust? Because we've seen that in Appalachia, Ohio many times before. And the other thing I said was, maybe people in Marietta and in these other counties, maybe they don't know an alternative and we need to bring it to them. I applaud everyone here that is standing up for their rights against fracking. It's very important that you're doing what you're doing, but there needs to be another conversation that says we can challenge this and we can bring a better way forward. To those that want to work on an alternative and those that aren't afraid to stand up to the oil and gas companies and say this is better, and if it's not, then so be it, but we're at least going to challenge it and to give a real chance for people that live in this region an opportunity to decide what they want.
My name is Caitlin McDaniel. I'm a student at OU, or returning student at OU. I'm from Columbus, but I moved to Athens to go to school down here, so I'm an adopted community member. One thing I want to say tonight, because I feel like everything else has been said so eloquently, is that there's a lot of solidarity across the state, in Columbus, in Cleveland, at OSU, at UD, at Case Western, at Cleveland State, with young people who don't want to see this happen in the Wayne, because this really affects our future. I'm very interested in a solution and being able to tap into the innovation that we have down here in Athens and find another way. In the fall, we'll be having a big group of students coming down here to train and to learn about what's going on at the Wayne, and if possible, I would like them all to be able to interact with you, with the community, and to see what it looks like being a frontline community. Let's try to make sure that Tony says no consent.
Mettler. I'm from Coolville, also a member of Torch Can Do. Choices. Life is about choices. There's good choices and there's bad choices. It's something that I teach my children every day, and there's consequences to each of these choices. Mr. Scardina has been given this very important choice. Frack waste. This is the other ugly side of fracking. Thousands of gallons of toxic radioactive waste. This is what's left over from fracking. This waste is transported in trucks, then shipped to these injection wells that is injected directly into our ground. I live approximately 5 miles from one of the largest injection well sites in the state. I have 14 family members that live just less than 2,000 feet from this injection well site. The site, this highly explosive, radioactive, toxic waste. It's not just brine, okay? And not only are we living next to this, but when we get into the fracking part, this brine, this waste has to be put in trucks and then transported to these facilities. So that puts every person on these roads at risk, okay? Class 2 injection wells have no monitoring. They have, for the water we drink, they have no monitoring for the air we breathe. How would you feel to have one of these sites in your backyard? They are not safe. And this must be considered. Tony, do not consent.
My name is Skip Shirey. I grew up in Athens County. I now live in New York City. I'm a composer. My parents are Jim Shirey and Sandra Shirey. I've watched this whole fracking debacle screw up Pennsylvania, obviously. I have friends in Colorado. I have friends in Texas. I travel all over the world as a musician, and I'm always aware of how fracking is being pushed to all these countries all over the world. It breaks my heart to come back to Athens and see this shit. Like, will I come back and see my parents land poisoned? They live right across from Fox Lake. And so I've been following it. I started my little Athens fracking group on Facebook, and I'm just so glad you're here doing this. Because these people know what they're doing. It's not like you're going to present them with logic and they're going to go, oh, you know, you're right. They know exactly what they're fucking doing, and they don't give a shit. The reason they banned fracking in New York is because they fought the fuck back, and that's the only way it's going to happen, because they don't care about it.
So I'm Krista Cummings. There are some common themes running through some of what has been said here tonight, and one of those is that many of us who spoke with Tony Scardina were challenged to send him peer-reviewed studies that showed that there was actually a danger with fracking. I complied. I, tried to pace them slowly so he'd have a chance to read them, and kind of waited with bated breath because I carefully picked out the ones that dealt with endangered songbirds and things of that nature. I haven't heard back from him, right? Not even once. One of the most recent studies I sent to him, I felt like was going to be the one that was finally going to get a response. This is a study that came out in this April in PLOS One. That is a paper which itself is peer-reviewed. And what the authors of that study did was they found every study that they could that pertained to fracking, 685 papers that came out between 2009 and 2015. And fracking wasn't really on the radar prior to that, so there's only really new research that's coming out. Not only were these all peer-reviewed studies, but it was a review of the peer-reviewed studies by a peer-reviewed journal, right? And so I was like, okay, this is the holy grail for Scardina, right? This is exactly what he's looking for. And even right in the abstract, this study says that there is a majority of the studies that are showing harm because of fracking. Some of these figures are not tiny, right? We're talking 84% of the studies that were reviewed. So these are 84% of the studies that were done and are in peer-reviewed journals showed harm to public health due to fracking. This is a really significant number. You know what's even scarier? We talk a lot about water contamination and pollution related to fracking. The concerns with that are not negligent. The numbers with that are something like 64% showed actual water contamination, which the ODNR likes to claim doesn't happen, but also potential for water contamination. But the one that really got me was 87% of these studies showed that there was air pollution being caused by fracking. Hence, that 84% causing harms to public health, right? So we are seeing real impacts due to fracking. So this is not something that we don't know about anymore. We actually have the science to back up the fact that fracking is harmful. I find it appalling that the people in Southeast Ohio are reading studies and that we know more about the impacts of fracking than our public servants that are making the decisions. We know more about the laws and the policies governing Wayne National Forest than Tony Scardina does. We are the ones who are informing him that he actually has the power to withhold consent from the Bureau of Land Management. He keeps telling us that no, 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 and we keep showing him the actual documentation of what the Forest Service policies are and what his job description actually is. How ridiculous is that? It's completely absurd that we are the ones who are responsible for protecting. This is not, and just as a reminder, this is not a regional issue. This is a national issue. And we are now being the ones who are forced to protect our national interests. Quite frankly, we kind of come to expect this from the Bureau of Land Management, which is also known, for those of you who don't know, as the Bureau of Looting and Mining. But we expect more from the Forest Service. Forest Service Supervisor at Daniel Boone National Forest did halt the leasing. They said, we need to do an environmental impact statement before we could give consent for leasing, and we don't have the money right now. Sorry. So just so everybody knows, he's playing us when he says he does not have the power to withhold consent. The health of the Marietta unit is particularly vulnerable due to all the air and water pollution that is being generated by the current oil and gas development in that area. Tony Scardina has the power to do the right thing and deny the Forest Service consent to oil and gas leasing in Wayne National Forest. It is critical that we do everything in our power to encourage him to do so.
I don't even know where to begin, in a sense, because I can only speak from my heart here. We have so many intelligent, wonderful, thinking people who have sorted out so very much of what is happening. But I see all of southern Ohio as one region. What happens over in Washington County is part of what is happening here. And what is happening to the land there is so connected to us, and we are so connected to that. Anything that damages the land also damages us, because we are all one. So, Tony, I speak this to you of how I personally feel as a lifelong I can't say resident, a lifelong being connected to this earth right here. So what I would like to say, Tony, is let us remind ourselves and you that this is our forest. This is our air. This is our soil. This is our water. These are our trees, our quiet, our peace, and our region, and the right of everyone connected to this land to have pure environment outside of the pollution of money. I don't know how they can claim that there is no harm, because any human being with any common sense, or just any human being who goes out and drinks a glass of water or breathes the air, innately knows that you depend on those things. And even the risk, even the outside chance of harming those things should not be allowed. We must be strong, as everyone here has been, to prevent this. And I've appreciated some of the comments today of taking absolute action, of connecting to Tony, as many have already done. But I think all of us need to make that connection. I think they know the truth, and they are refusing because they know what the truth will reveal. I have a strong love for this region, and I've loved these hills my whole life. Generations have come here before me. Growing up here as a child, driving by the slag piles along the roads, seeing the old coal mines, seeing Lake Hope when it was orange. I have seen it all move forward and recover. And so many businesses have come to this region. So many people from everywhere have come to this region. We are recovering. We do not need to be set back to where we were. And I have dedicated my life to embracing the beauty that's here. And I have started an outdoor business to bring people here. And I have met so many people from so many places that come here in wonder to enjoy our lakes and our woods. And we have, as someone said here, a gem. This is an oasis for people from many places. Talk about a resource. This is a resource for mental and physical health where people can come and be restored. And we have it, and we cannot let it go. The jobs here, directly related to tourism. In 2013, 2,000 jobs were directly related to tourism in Athens County alone, not even speaking in a broader way of our whole region. So I won't step away, and I won't see positive improvement and beauty come back. I won't step away and let it happen. Travel and tourism in 2013 brought in $139.1 million. I don't want to hear about 321 jobs of dirt. And likewise, oil and gas will destroy everything that we have come to grow into. We have really worked as a people to make beauty and health and peace right here. No, I won't step back. And Tony, I ask you not to step back either. Don't step back. You can be as strong as the rest of us and say no. You can be as strong as I have been, Tony, to give my life to this region and try to stay within this and not have to leave Southern Ohio. So be as strong as all of us, Tony, and do your job.
Forest Council and also the Center for Health, Environment, and Justice. I also want to give a quick thumbs up to the county commissioners for not being the cowards that the BLM have been. Okay, I hope that everybody, when you came in, picked up this little green sheet. Tony's numbers on this. Call it tomorrow. Call it day after tomorrow. Call it every day. And I mean every day. I want to touch on some of the stuff that's already been said. In Washington County alone, we have had 9 earthquakes located within a mile of the Long Run injection well. But that's very important because where will this waste go if they drill in the wind? Who will oversee or have responsibility for these wells once they're put in? Will these wells, will they have a closed loop pitless system? No, because it's not required in the state of Ohio. Will they have a freeboard of 2 feet? No, because it's not required in the state of Ohio. Will the pits or tanks be free of visible leaks or failures? No. Again, not required. Will there be leak detection systems? No, not required. Will the pits be fenced or netted to prevent birds and animals from going into these pits? No, not required. Can the pit waste be buried on site? Yes. In June of 2014, the Ohio DNR released a document that showed all of the rules and the laws they needed to write. Some of these go back to the 1980s, and they have failed to write the rules, such as waste processing, waste recycling. We have 45 facilities in Ohio that take frack waste that are only given a chief's order. They are not given a permit by the state of Ohio. They're operating under the darkness of the night. Are there rules for temporary waste storage? No. Is there waste treatment? No. Waste impoundments? No.
He's the best snake. His name's Percy. What's his name? Percy. Perseus.
You looking for a girlfriend?
Oh, he already has one, and she's right there.
Oh, mixed marriage.
Yeah.
Did they reproduce?
Yeah, they already did. He wants to go back up my arm. Huh? Yeah.
Hey, when is this band supposed to be done, do you know?
11.
You bite mice for them?
Huh?
How do you feed them? You get mice?
You gotta ask that guy. That's the owner.
Oh. Do you buy mice to feed them?
Hell yeah, dude. What else would they eat?
Frozen or?
Live. It's hard to get constrictors to eat dead.
Oh.
They look for the heartbeat.
Oh. And this one has already reproduced?
Yeah, she laid eggs a couple days ago. They're hatching in 3.5 weeks.
Are they in an incubator?
Yeah, they're right inside. You want a picture of them? Come on in.
Hatched?
No, they're gonna hatch in about 3.5 weeks.
They're all squashed.
Well, they're not like bird eggs. Bird eggs are hard. Reptile eggs are soft.
Oh.
This is a chameleon.
Hey, beautiful. You're a herpetologist, eh?
That's right.
Did you go to Hocking?
No, I go to OU.
Uh-huh.
Biological sciences, specializing in animal sciences, vertebrate zoology, and herpetology.
Wow. This is the old dugout.
No flash photography.
What kind is this?
That is a ball python. It's blue-eyed leucistic cogonament trait, where they actually have blue eyes and actually produce white tails.
This place is going to be an exotic gift shop.
Who should I give?